Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
It's great to be here.
Today we're going underground
Oh.
to explore a topic that's
Yes.
super important for anyone out there
Mm-hmm.
who's aiming for the top ranks
All right.
in those UPSC exams.
Definitely.
We're talking about India's groundwater,
All right.
and to guide us through this,
Yeah.
we're using the latest report
Okay.
from the Central Groundwater Board,
The CGWB.
the CGWB.
All right.
And let me tell you,
Okay.
this report is a real eye-opener.
I think for a lot of people, this is going to be surprising.
It was for me.
Yeah.
We're going to be uncovering some
Yeah.
alarming facts about contamination,
Absolute.
but also some surprisingly positive trends
Yeah.
when it comes to availability.
Interesting.
So
yeah.
let's dive in
Let's dive in. I love it.
to this hidden world beneath our feet.
I'm fascinated by this report. I mean, just what it says
Yeah,
about the situation we're facing.
it really does lay it all out there.
It is. So.
And one of the things that really
Yeah.
stood out to me the most was just the scale
Yes.
of contamination.
The scale is huge.
The report states that over half
Wow.
of India's districts
Okay.
now have nitrate levels
Mm-hmm.
exceeding what's considered safe.
And that's a big jump.
That's a huge
In
jump.
just a few years.
Right. It went from 359 districts
Yeah.
to 440 districts.
That's a lot.
That's massive.
Yeah.
And for those of you prepping for the UTSC,
Yes.
nitrate contamination,
This is important.
this comes up a lot on the exam.
It really does.
So pay attention.
This is a critical issue,
Yes.
especially when you think about
Public health.
public health. These high nitrate levels in
Yeah.
drinking water
Yeah.
can lead to
Methemoglobinemia.
hemoglobinemia,
Oh, wow.
which is
Yeah.
it's particularly dangerous for infants.
I see.
Yeah.
You need to really be careful about this.
So how does that work? What is methemoglobinemia?
So basically, it disrupts the blood's ability to
Right.
carry oxygen
Yeah.
effectively.
So that's terrifying,
It is scary.
especially for new parents.
Yes.
Definitely.
So which regions are we talking about here
Okay, so
that are facing the brunt of this nitrate problem?
the report highlights Rajasthan,
Okay.
Karnataka,
Right.
and Tamil Nadu as,
The biggest hotspots.
the biggest hotspots. In Rajasthan alone, almost half the districts have already crossed that safe limit
Yeah.
for nitrate.
It's not just limited to those states, though, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
We're seeing these rising nitrate levels in other states too.
Like where?
Maharashtra, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh,
Yeah.
and Madhya Pradesh.
So it's like this wave
Yes,
that's moving across the country.
a silent wave
Yeah.
that we need to pay attention to.
A silent wave. And one thing I found really interesting in the report
Okay.
was that they said that contamination often worsens
Really?
after the monsoon season.
After. I would think all that rain would
Yeah.
kind of dilute things.
You would think it would wash everything away.
Yeah.
But
It seems counterintuitive.
it does.
But what happens is
Yeah.
the monsoon rains
Yeah.
can actually mobilize contaminants that have been lurking in the soil
I see.
and then wash them into the groundwater sources.
So it's like
That
if
means
you
just
stir up
isolate.
a muddy puddle,
Okay.
things get worse before they get better.
That's a great analogy. So we've got nitrates to worry about.
Yes.
But the report also flags other contaminants.
Yeah.
Like fluoride and uranium.
Right.
What's going on with those?
So fluoride contamination
Yeah.
is a serious concern in states like Rajasthan,
Mm-hmm.
Haryana,
Okay.
Karnataka,
Yeah.
Andhra Pradesh,
Yeah.
and Telangana.
And high fluoride levels can lead to...
Skeletal fluorosis.
Okay, and what's that?
It's a bone disease.
Oh, wow.
And as for uranium,
Yeah.
the report found worryingly high levels
Okay.
in several states,
Okay.
including Rajasthan,
Okay.
Punjab,
Uh-huh.
Haryana,
Mm-hmm.
Gujarat,
Yeah.
Tamil Nadu,
Mm-hmm.
Andhra Pradesh,
Uh-huh.
and Karnataka.
Okay. So this uranium issue
Yes.
is especially problematic in areas
Yeah.
where groundwater is already being overexploited.
Right, because the uranium tends to concentrate in those depleted aquifers.
So it's like a double whammy.
It is.
Okay. So we've talked about a lot of negative things here.
Yes.
But before we get too bogged down,
Yeah.
the report actually did have one silver lining.
Oh, good.
Groundwater availability seems to be improving.
Okay, so what's the story there?
So
Yep.
the report shows an increase
Yep.
in the percentage of safe blocks,
Right.
meaning areas
With
sufficient groundwater.
enough groundwater
Right.
to meet current demands.
Okay.
We're at 73% now,
Wow.
which is up from 67.4%
Okay.
just last year.
That's a big jump.
That's a big jump. And these safe blocks are assessed
Yeah.
based on the stage of groundwater development and how much water is being extracted
Right.
compared to how much is being replenished.
I see.
So that's definitely a positive sign.
It is encouraging.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm guessing
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we can just
Right. Forget
turn a
it.
blind eye to conservation.
Definitely not. We
Right.
can't become complacent.
Yeah.
Groundwater is a finite resource,
Right.
and we need to manage it sustainably.
Absolutely.
Make sure we don't slip back into a water crisis.
So we've talked about the what of the contamination problem.
We have. Yeah.
Now let's dig into the why.
Okay, let's do it.
What's driving this contamination in the first place?
Yes.
And the report really points a finger at agriculture.
Yes. Agricultural practices are a major contributor to groundwater contamination.
How so?
The excessive use of fertilizers and pesticides.
I see.
These chemicals can leach into the soil and eventually seep into the groundwater,
Okay.
especially nitrates.
So it's not just how much water we're using,
It's not just the quantity, it's also the quality
but how we're farming.
and how we're farming.
That's affecting
Right.
water quality.
And then there's also the issue of irrigation practices.
Okay.
So flood irrigation, for example, can really exacerbate the problem
I see.
because it creates easy pathways for those contaminants to reach the groundwater.
So it's like
a chain reaction.
yeah, we need to feed a growing population.
Yes.
So we intensify agriculture,
Right.
but then that puts pressure
Exactly.
on water resources,
More pressure.
leading to overextraction.
And contamination.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is.
And to make matters worse,
Yeah.
agriculture isn't the only source of contamination.
You're right. The report also highlights other sources, like leaking storage tanks.
Okay, those old rusty tanks.
Those old rusty tanks you see sometimes.
You see them in rural areas,
Yeah.
and they're holding gasoline,
Yeah.
oil, or chemicals.
Oil, chemicals, all sorts of things.
What else?
Hazardous waste sites
Okay.
and landfills, especially older ones that lack proper linings,
Right.
to prevent seepage.
So they can
Major sources of contamination. And even poorly maintained septic systems can contribute to the problem.
So it's a whole mix of industrial activities,
Yes.
waste disposal practices, and even just
Even those everyday things.
everyday things like septic systems
Exactly.
that are all adding to this.
All adding to it.
Toxic cocktail
A toxic cocktail.
in our groundwater. And
Yeah.
this is very relevant
Yeah.
to the UPSC syllabus,
Absolutely.
connecting to topics like environmental pollution
Yes.
and sustainable development.
It's all connected.
So UPSC aspirants,
Take note.
take note.
This is important.
This is important stuff. Now, understanding the causes
Yeah.
is just the first step.
Right.
What are the implications
Yeah.
of having all this contaminated groundwater?
Well, the consequences are far-reaching.
Okay.
They impact our health, our food security,
Okay.
and even the environment.
Right. So let's break that down a little bit.
So we've already talked about
Yeah.
the health risks of nitrates,
Yeah.
but long-term exposure
Yeah.
to other contaminants like fluoride,
Yeah.
arsenic, and
Yeah.
heavy metals can lead to
All sorts of problems.
all sorts of problems.
Like-
From skeletal fluorosis to skin lesions
Wow.
and even an increased risk of cancer.
It's scary to think about those
Yeah.
long-term consequences.
Absolutely.
And the report also mentioned that contaminated groundwater
Yes,
can affect food production.
it can.
So how does that work?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
If farmers are using contaminated groundwater for irrigation,
Yeah.
those contaminants can end up
In the crops.
in the crops.
Right.
This affects
Yeah.
the quality and safety of the food we eat,
Of
but can also lead to
lower yield.
lower yields
Okay.
and economic losses for farmers.
So it's like
Yeah.
a health crisis,
A health crisis,
a food security issue,
food security,
and potentially
economic.
an economic blow as well.
Yeah.
Are there any other implications
Yes, there are.
we should be aware of?
Contaminated groundwater
Yeah.
can also have a devastating effect.
On the environment.
So how so?
Well, for example,
Yeah.
nitrate pollution
Okay.
can fuel algal blooms
Oh,
in rivers and lakes.
I see.
And that depletes the oxygen
Yeah.
and harms fish populations.
So it's like a domino effect.
It's a domino effect.
Yeah, these negative consequences
Rippling outward.
just keep rippling outward.
Yeah.
And I imagine dealing with all of this contamination
Yeah.
comes with a pretty hefty price tag.
You're right.
Yeah.
Treating contaminated water to make it safe for drinking
Yeah.
is expensive.
It's an expensive process.
And when water sources become unusable because of contamination, it can lead to water shortages.
Okay.
And then that impacts agriculture industries.
Yeah.
The entire economy, really.
So it's like this Hydra,
it is,
you know,
you solve one problem.
Solve one problem and two more.
Two more pop up.
Exactly. But the report did highlight
some government initiatives that are aimed at tackling these challenges.
Okay.
So what are some of the key efforts underway?
Okay, so the government has launched several programs to address groundwater issues.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, or JSA, which focuses on water conservation and rainwater harvesting.
All right. What else?
There's the National Aquifer Mapping and Management Program.
Okay.
And Aquium,
okay,
which aims to map and manage our aquifers sustainably.
All right. Anything else?
And finally, we have the Atal Bhujal Yojana.
The ABHY?
ABHY. And what does that do?
That targets overexploited and water-stressed areas to improve groundwater management.
Okay, so it sounds like
it's a multi-pronged approach.
Multi-pronged approach focusing on
conservation.
Both conservation and management.
And management. Now, what about pollution control? What's being done to prevent contamination in the first place?
So we have organizations like the Central Pollution Control Board.
Yeah, the CPCB.
The CPCB.
And the State Pollution Control Boards that are working to enforce pollution control measures under the Water Act of 1974.
Exactly.
So their focus is on
preventing contamination.
From industrial
and other sources.
That's good to know.
It is good to know.
Yeah, that they're out there,
yes,
working on that.
Absolutely.
But regulations are only effective
if they're enforced.
That's right.
So what about raising public awareness?
Public awareness is key.
Yeah.
To any successful environmental initiative.
So is that being addressed?
It is.
In what way?
The government has launched campaigns like Catch the Rain, which promotes rainwater harvesting.
Right.
And the Swachh Bharat mission, which emphasizes sanitation and waste management.
So these campaigns are really trying to educate people.
They are.
About the importance.
Of
protecting our water resources.
Yes.
Including groundwater.
Exactly.
So we've got government programs. We've got pollution control boards.
Yes.
And we've got public awareness campaigns.
Right.
It seems like a good start.
It does.
But is it enough?
That's the question.
What more needs to be done to ensure a secure and sustainable groundwater future for India?
That's a question that we're going to explore in more detail as we continue our deep dive.
All right, so we're going to take a quick pause here.
Okay.
But when we come back, we'll dive even deeper into potential solutions and what a sustainable groundwater future for India might actually look like.
Right. So stay tuned.
I will. One thing that really struck me going through this CGWB report was just the interconnectedness of everything.
In what way?
We're talking about groundwater, but it's really a mirror reflecting our choices in agriculture, in industry, urban planning, even what we do in our own homes.
Like this giant web.
It is. You tug on one thread and the whole thing shakes.
So if we want to solve this contamination crisis, we can't just focus on one area.
Yeah. Right. We need a more holistic approach.
So give me an example.
Okay, let's take fertilizer use.
Okay.
The report highlights how excessive fertilizer use is fueling
nitrate contamination.
But
we can't just tell farmers.
Right.
You can't just stop using fertilizer.
We don't want to stop.
Right.
We have to consider
the economic realities.
This need to produce enough food and the availability of alternative farming methods.
Well, what's the answer? Are we talking about like a complete overhaul of the agricultural system?
I think a significant shift is definitely needed.
In what way?
We have to move towards agricultural practices that prioritize both soil health and water conservation.
So like what?
Think organic farming, crop rotation, integrated pest management.
So these are all methods.
These are methods that can reduce our dependence
on those chemical inputs.
Chemical inputs.
And that ties in nicely.
It does.
With the idea of rainwater harvesting.
Yes.
Right?
Rainwater harvesting.
If we can reduce our reliance on groundwater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we can reduce that reliance, then it takes some of the pressure off.
So it should be more than just an afterthought.
It should be woven into
the fabric of our urban planning and rural development strategy.
So like imagine new buildings.
Imagine new buildings being designed with rainwater harvesting systems and villages having community-managed recharge ponds.
So that would significantly reduce strain on our aquifers.
It would.
So it's a shift in mindset.
It is.
From extraction.
From extraction.
To replenishment.
To replenishment.
But what about the contamination that's already there?
Remediation is a complex and often costly process.
So how would that even work?
There are techniques like bioremediation, where microorganisms are used to break down contaminants.
I see.
Or pump and treat systems, where contaminated water is pumped out, treated, and then re-injected.
So it sounds very complicated.
It can be.
And expensive.
And in many cases,
prevention is far more effective
than a cure. Right. So that's why addressing those other contamination sources like landfills, septic system, and industrial waste is so important.
It's crucial.
So let's tackle those one by one.
Okay.
What's the game plan for cleaning up those contamination hotspots?
For landfills, we need to transition to modern engineered landfills. With proper liners. And leachate collection systems.
And leachate is?
Leachate is essentially the liquid that forms as waste decomposes. And it can be highly contaminated.
So those older unlined landfills?
Those older ones need to be assessed and remediated to prevent further leakage.
And on a broader level, we need to rethink. Our entire approach to waste management.
Absolutely.
So less dumping.
Less dumping. More recycling.
Composting. Waste segregation at the source. Composting organic waste and promoting a circular economy where materials are reused and recycled as much as possible.
So those are essential steps.
Those are the steps.
To minimize
the waste.
The waste that ends up in landfill.
That ends up in landfill in the first place. What about septic systems?
So septic systems.
Those are like...
They're like a silent threat.
Silent threat lurking beneath the surface.
They are.
So what do we do about that?
In many areas, septic systems are outdated and poorly maintained. So we need stricter regulations for septic tank installation and regular inspections to ensure proper functioning.
And in densely populated areas.
We might need to transition to centralized sewage treatment systems.
So it's about
upgrading infrastructure.
Upgrading infrastructure.
And enforcing those regulations.
Okay. Now, what about industrial pollution?
Because
that's a whole other...
It's a whole other beast.
To tackle.
It requires a multi-pronged approach.
Like what?
We need stricter effluent discharge standards, regular monitoring of industries, and penalties for those who violate the rules.
So it's not just about...
It's not just about punishing polluters. It's also about incentivizing them to adopt cleaner production technologies and more sustainable practices.
So like a carrot and stick approach.
Exactly.
But underpinning all of this is the need for effective monitoring.
Monitoring is key.
How do we ensure...
How do we know?
That we're keeping a close eye on groundwater quality across the entire country?
We need a robust network of groundwater monitoring wells strategically placed across the country.
That provide real-time data on water quality parameters.
And that data
needs to be publicly accessible and used to inform decision-making.
At all levels.
So
transparency
and accountability
are crucial.
When it comes to something as essential as water.
Especially when we're talking about water.
But let's be realistic. All of these solutions require significant resources.
They do.
So who's going to pay for all of this?
That's the million-dollar question. It requires a collaborative effort involving the government, industries, communities, and individuals.
So it's about recognizing.
That water security
is a priority.
Is a national priority.
And allocating those resources. And
allocating the necessary financial and human resources.
To tackle it effectively.
But
it's not just about money.
It's not just about money.
Right.
It's also about
political will. And raising public awareness.
Public awareness is crucial.
Yeah.
We need strong policies.
Okay.
Effective enforcement mechanisms.
Yeah.
And active citizen participation.
Public awareness campaigns can play a big role.
A huge role.
Yeah.
In educating people.
About the importance.
Of
groundwater conservation.
Yes.
And responsible water use.
Absolutely.
And that's where you come in, dear listener.
Yes.
This is not just academic information.
Some academic exercise.
For your UPSC exams.
This is about understanding.
Our
kids' challenges.
The challenges facing one of our most precious resources and becoming advocates for its protection.
Mm-hmm. But let's not end on a gloomy note.
Okay.
Let's talk about the future.
Let's do it. What does a sustainable groundwater future in India look like?
I envision a future where groundwater is treated as a common heritage, managed responsibly and sustainably to benefit both present and future generations.
That's a beautiful vision.
Thank you.
Can you paint us a more detailed picture?
Sure.
Like, what are the key elements?
It's not a sustainable future.
For starters, imagine a landscape where agriculture has embraced
sustainable practices. Okay.
Farms incorporate organic methods.
Mm-hmm.
Rainwater harvesting is commonplace.
Yeah.
And water use is optimized through efficient irrigation techniques.
Right.
Industries have adopted cleaner production technologies, minimizing their impact
on water resources.
Okay. Our cities are designed to be water sensitive with green spaces, permeable pavements that allow water to seep into the ground, and efficient water management systems. And perhaps most importantly, every citizen understands their water footprint and actively participates in conservation efforts.
Yeah, so it sounds like a utopia.
It does.
But it also feels
individually
achievable.
I think it is.
It's about making conscious choices.
It is.
Both individually
and collectively.
To
prioritize water security. It's about recognizing that every drop counts. And that our actions today will shape the availability of this precious resource.
For generations to come. So listeners, let's take a moment. To reflect. We've explored the challenges. We've explored the potential solutions and the vision for a sustainable future.
But the real question is, what role will you play?
Win
this story. What steps can you take? To ensure that India's groundwater
to ensure
remains a source of life and prosperity.
That's a question worth pondering.
It is.
Especially for those aspiring to serve the nation. Your understanding of these issues and your commitment to finding solutions could be the key to securing a brighter future.
For India's water resources. And on that inspiring note, we're going to shift gears. In the final part of our deep dive.
All right.
We'll explore some specific actions.
Some specific actions that you can take. To make a tangible difference.
All right. I'm excited for that.
So don't go anywhere. Welcome back to our deep dive into India's groundwater.
We've covered a lot of ground
in
the previous parts. We've explored the alarming scale of contamination. The hopeful signs of improving availability. And the
urgent need.
For sustainable solutions.
Oh, absolutely.
So now let's get down to brass tacks. What can you, our listeners, actually do?
What can we do?
To make a difference?
That's a great question. Because knowledge without action is like a well without water. It might be there, but it's not serving its purpose.
I love that analogy.
Thank you.
So let's brainstorm. What are some concrete steps?
What can we do?
Our listeners can take.
Starting today.
Starting today.
Well, I think the first step is to arm yourself with knowledge.
All right, so
dive deep into these issues.
Surrounding groundwater in India.
So read reports.
Read reports.
Research studies. Stay informed about government policies and initiatives.
It sounds like the perfect opportunity.
It is.
To put those UPSC study skills.
Put them to use.
To good use.
Okay,
what else can we do?
Don't underestimate the power of your voice.
Okay.
Advocate for change.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Write to your elected representatives.
Okay.
Participate in public consultations. Raise awareness within your communities.
You know, you are the future leaders of this country, and your voices have the power
they do
to shape policy and drive change. So it's not just about acing those exams. It's about using that knowledge.
To make a real-world impact.
Now, what about on a more personal level?
Okay.
Are there things we can do
in
our daily lives to conserve groundwater?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Start by being mindful of your water usage.
All right, so...
Fix leaky taps promptly.
Yeah.
Fix those leaky taps.
Install water-efficient appliances.
Okay.
And make a conscious effort to avoid wasting water.
In your daily routines. So there's small changes.
Those small changes add up.
They can make a difference.
They can.
What other steps can we take at home?
You could install a rainwater harvesting system in your house or apartment building.
Yeah. It might seem like an investment up front.
It might.
But it pays off in the long run.
It does.
For your water bill?
For your water bill and for the environment.
Now, for our listeners out there who are involved in agriculture or have family members who are farmers, what advice would you give them?
I would encourage them to explore and adopt sustainable farming practices.
Like what kind of sustainable farming practices?
Things like organic farming, crop rotation, and water-efficient irrigation techniques.
Like drip irrigation.
So that can significantly reduce.
Yeah, it reduces water consumption.
And
minimizes the risk of contamination.
So it's about working within our spheres of influence.
It is.
Whether it's our homes, our communities, or our professional fields.
Exactly.
But what about on a larger scale?
Okay.
What can we do? To promote systemic change?
You can support organizations that are working on the ground to protect and conserve water resources.
Sure.
You can volunteer your time.
Donate
to their cause. Or simply spread awareness about their work.
So it's about using our time.
It's about using what we have.
Our resources.
And our voices.
To
create a ripple effect.
To create that ripple effect.
Positive change.
Any
final words of wisdom for our aspiring civil servants?
I would say remember
that securing a sustainable groundwater future for India is not just a challenge. It's an opportunity. An opportunity to innovate. To lead. And to create lasting solutions.
That will benefit
generations to come.
Those are inspiring words to end on.
Thank you.
We hope this deep dive has equipped you. With the knowledge and the motivation.
Absolutely.
To be part of the solution. Remember, every drop counts. And every action. No matter how small. Can contribute to a brighter, more water-secure future. For India. And before we sign off, subscribe and share this deep dive with your fellow UPSC aspirants.
Spread the word.
Until next time.
Keep
diving deep.
Keep diving deep.
And keep learning.
Then keep learning.